With reaction, author of The Rise of ISIS, A Threat We Cannot Ignore, from the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow, the president of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association and Samaritan's Purse, the Reverend Franklin Graham, and also here in studio, Fox News contributor DeRoy Murdoch is with us. Welcome all of you. Jay, let me begin with you. The president, the White House, they cannot utter the words radical Islam. Why?
Well, yeah, we barely got him to, utter the word terrorism. The fact of the matter is what's happened and what the White House is sending out is a message consistent with their narrative, which is to never identify the enemy of actually who they are. And this is radical Islamists, jihadists that are completely focused on doing exactly what they did in France, which, by the way, is much more of, I know Al-Qaeda is claiming credit for it. It looks like it's an Al-Qaeda in Yemen, in that whole area. But the fact of the matter is it's much more like an ISIS type of event. And you're seeing them come out of the shadows, come out of the caves, so to speak, and really engage their form of terrorism in this kind of public way. I think, Sean, the reality is the White House, refusing to narrate, really point to the true narrative here, which is these are radical jihadists, is part of the problem in dealing with this enemy. You've got to identify the enemy to take them down.
There are a few courageous people, Reverend Graham, and one of them is General al-Sisi of Egypt, who actually went out there and said, I say again, and he said this in front of Muslim leaders, and he said, I say and repeat again that we're in need of a religious revolution, he said. You imams, you're responsible before Allah. The entire world is waiting for you. The world is waiting on your word because the Islamic world is being torn, it is being destroyed, it is being lost, and it is being lost by our own hands. For him to say that in that region of the world to some of the very imams responsible for spreading this hatred, I thought was an act of courage. Your reaction?
First of all, let me just say, Sean, I believe, I want to say something to all the Muslims that may be watching this that are confused and are afraid themselves. I want them to know that God loves them and that Jesus Christ died for their sins, and Christ will forgive them and heal their hearts. And they don't have to die in a jihad. They don't have to kill somebody else to please God. God loves them, and He will accept them through faith in His Son, Jesus Christ. And we look at the Islamic world, no question, what General Sisi said is true. The Islamic world is being torn apart by its own hand. But the problem is the Islamic world, the UN gives billions of dollars to the Palestinian Authority, and then they turn around, Sean, and they teach hatred. They teach that you're to kill Jews and you're to kill Christians, and the UN and others have been helping to support this. And I think we're going to have to take a close look at this. And the United States gives money to this, and we cannot give, I don't think, any money to any country or to any group that supports the killing of any person, innocent, regardless of who you are.
All right, let me turn to DeRoy. Three basic reasons given by the White House, Josh Earnest, saying, number one, that the first is accuracy. We want to describe exactly what happened. Well, it would be radical Islamist. The second, he says, is the act is roundly condemned by Muslim leaders. That's not true, is it?
Well, by some, but there are a lot
very few.
There are very few who condemn it. There are many who are silent, and of course there are many others who applaud what happened in Paris, the awful killing of 2,000 people by Boko Haram in Nigeria over the weekend. It's just relentless. Now we've got this case in Ohio, and now we just heard sitting down here about shop owners in Washington, D.C. I mean, there's no break. It is a daily increase in the ongoing march of radical Islam, and I think it's absolutely vital to identify what the problem is. If I said, for example, Sean, you've got a little spot on your hand, but don't worry, it's a rash. You're fine. Well, guess what? Maybe it's actually skin cancer. You need to go to a doctor and get some serious help. And I keep telling you, don't worry, it's just a rash. Put a little ointment on it. I think by pretending that this is not radical Islam, but instead is radical Presbyterianism or radical vegetarianism or something like that, we're not serious about how dangerous this is, how deadly it is, and that we have to do things like, for example, not let anybody else out of Gitmo while these people are on the march, and incredibly aggressive and incredibly deadly, more and more so every day.
And Jay, I guess one of the important things that we got to come to grips with here, I mean, how all of this is interpreted by the radical Islamic world. Don't they see us as weak, as walking on eggshells, fearful to even print a cartoon even?
No, and you're absolutely right, Sean. We are sending a signal not only of weakness, but of lack of concern. You know, you could argue and debate whether the president should have gone to France or whether it should have been the vice president or it should have been the attorney general. But you had the leaders of the free world and some leaders of not so much the free world participating in this event. And this, you know, the worst example of leading from behind. But this lack of leadership, this lack of ability to call exactly what we're dealing with, what it is putting us in a not only a weak situation internally, domestically in the United States for these acts of terror to take place here, but it also signals very clearly that the United States is not dealing with this in the way we know how to do it. Now, look, Sean, we've got the best military in the world. We have incredible intelligence. But when they are handcuffed and cannot do their job, this is what you end up with, exactly what we're seeing. You've got, you know, there are a lot of people that are concerned right now that we could have an unbelievable eruption of this in Europe. And believe me, the United States would not be far behind. That's what they're trying to do. No leadership here is very dangerous.
Reverend Graham, you mentioned that you offered your faith, which is Christianity. I'm a Christian as you are, or try to be, not as good as you are. But in fairness, if somebody leaves the religion, the Islamic religion, that's viewed as apostasy. And the penalty in many countries for that is death. So I don't think there's going to be a quick migration into another religion because that opportunity doesn't exist for a lot of people. When you speak about Islam and you read the Quran, what do you read? What is it that tells you that this is not the religion for you? Because you've been very outspoken about it.
Well, first of all, Islam is not a religion of peace, and there's nothing in its history that gives proof to peace. It's a very violent form of faith. But Sean, I want people to know, the Muslims to know, that in their heart they can put their faith and trust in Jesus Christ. I'm not asking them to go out openly
Christians
and denounce Islam, but I'm talking about they can do this quietly in their heart and just say, God, I believe in you, and I believe that your son Jesus Christ died for my sins, and I want to invite him to come into my heart, and I want his forgiveness, and I want him to transform my life. But they don't have to go out and tell their Muslim family what they have done, because they'll be killed. You see, about 89% of the Islamic world believe that if you change your faith from Islam to anything else, you should that should be the death penalty, and that the family can actually kill you, and the law will do nothing to touch you. They will take your life. So I'm saying they can do this quietly in their hearts, and have that assurance, knowing that their sins are forgiven and that they can spend eternity in heaven, and they don't have to die in some jihad to please God.
All right. Just to amplify something Jay said, not only did Obama nor Biden nor Secretary Kerry or anybody go to this march in Paris, but to make things even worse, yesterday, or actually on Monday, Obama met with the San Antonio Spurs, and there he was with the basketball team holding up his brand new jersey that said POTUS won. This is the same president who, during the Benghazi attack that killed 4 American brave public servants, we don't know where he was.
After a beheading, he gives a 2-minute press conference and goes to play golf.
Goes right to play golf. In his first term, he missed 56% of his presidential daily briefs, including for 1 week before Benghazi and 3 days thereafter. There's a profound unseriousness, I would say even a juvenile nature to this president, and I really hope over the next 2 years we can get through all the challenges we have with somebody who's just really not sufficiently focused on his job.
And this is going to be a challenging 2 years, Sean. I'm going to follow up on that for a second. This is going to be a challenging 2 years. We don't have 2 years to deal with this situation that we're dealing with right now in Europe, and we will be dealing with right here in the United States. We already have. We've got to be dealing with it now. We don't have 2 years. Frankly, we don't have 2 months.
All right, guys, good to see you all. Thank you for being with us. And coming